What if a version of the Bible existed that contained books lost to the rest of the world for centuries? Books like Enoch, Jubilees, and the Meqabian texts, which reveal a cosmos of angels, ancient prophecies, and a vision of faith older than the Vatican itself? This is not a fantasy. In the highlands of Ethiopia, a unique biblical canon survived, preserved by the Orthodox Tewahedo Church, while Western Christianity standardized and narrowed its scriptures. The story of how this Bible endured is an epic tale of geography, faith, and fierce resistance. It's the story of a nation that refused to let its sacred texts be altered, a people who defended their spiritual heritage against the influence of Rome, and a faith that stands as a living bridge to the earliest days of Christianity. But before continuing, please subscribe to my channel. It is a big deal to me, but a matter of a single click to you. Ethiopia's survival begins with its land, a fortress carved by nature. Soaring plateaus, deep gorges, and deserts stretching to the horizon made it a kingdom apart. For centuries, travelers spoke of exhausting journeys through Muslim territories and rugged highlands to reach this Christian island in a Muslim sea. This geographic isolation was real, creating a buffer that slowed the tide of foreign influence. But it was never an impenetrable wall. The mountains bought time, but it was the people within them who would use that time to mount a defense of their faith. The Ethiopian plateau was a land apart, but not unreachable. Arab traders crossed the Red Sea for centuries. Portuguese diplomats and Jesuit missionaries eventually arrived, navigating the very barriers that were meant to deter them. They found not an empty land, but a sophisticated Christian kingdom with its own ancient traditions. The geography filtered outsiders, allowing only the most determined to enter, but it could not stop them entirely. The true test would come not at the mountain passes, but in the hearts and courts of the Ethiopian people. When foreign ideas did breach the mountains, the response was swift and decisive. In the 17th century, Emperor Sisenio's I, under Jesuit influence, briefly aligned Ethiopia with Rome. The reaction from the people was not acceptance, but revolt. Monks denounced the betrayal from their mountain monasteries. Peasants rose in rebellion. The land that had slowed the outsiders now became a stronghold for internal resistance. The mountains provided the stage, but the people were the actors in a drama of defiance. The people's life was attached to Christianity, and children taught the Book of Meqabian, a unique Ethiopian canon, at Sunday school. This canon dictates Jewish patriotism to keep their faith intact, which the Western rejected to include this book in their canon. In the final analysis, Ethiopia's geography was a facilitator, not a cause. The mountains and deserts provided a crucial advantage, slowing external pressure and allowing a unique culture to flourish. But without the conscious choice of emperors, clergy, and common people to guard their traditions, even the most formidable terrain would have been conquered. The land was the shield, but Ethiopian agency was the hand that held it firm. The survival of the Bible was a choice, made possible by the land, but guaranteed by the people based on their unique canon's teachings delivered in Sunday schools. Watch the video till the end. The next part will astonish you. Ethiopia's Christian identity is often dated to the 4th century conversion of King Ezana, but its roots dig much deeper into the very soil of ancient Israel. Though 1 Kings 10 verses 1 to 3 indicated the visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon, the national epic, the Kabra Nagast, tells of the Queen of Sheba's birthing of Menelik to King Solomon later became king of Ethiopia, creating a dynasty and a spiritual bond to Israel. This was not mere legend. It reflected a historical reality. Jewish communities, the Beta Israel, thrived in Ethiopia for centuries, and with them, they brought and preserved scriptures like Enoch and Jubilees that would later vanish from other canons. Ethiopia was already a part of the biblical world before the gospel arrived in its current pack. This deep Jewish connection meant that Christianity was not a foreign implant, but a natural fulfillment. The Acts of the Apostles records the baptism of the Ethiopian eunuch by Philip, the first Gentile convert. This was not just a conversion story. For Ethiopia, it was an identity. The eunuch was a high official of the Kandake, the Queen of Ethiopia. His baptism symbolized that Ethiopia received the gospel directly from an apostle, not through later European intermediaries. This apostolic origin gave Ethiopian Christianity an authority and independence that would later fuel its resistance to Rome. Ethiopia didn't get Christianity from the second hand, but from the apostles themselves being part of establishment of Christianity itself. So, how can the Western influence Ethiopia themselves being lately coming to Christianity than Ethiopia? Even after formal ties were established with the Coptic Church of Alexandria in the 4th century, Ethiopia retained remarkable autonomy. The Egyptian-appointed Abuna, bishop, could not alter the local canon, suppress beloved texts like Enoch, or replace the sacred language of Guizi. Ethiopians didn't lose their pre-established canon for the sake of the Alexandrian bishops, but kept it even though Alexandrian canon didn't accept these books. This connection directly to Alexandria, rather than Rome, acted as a buffer that shielded the Vatican. The Vatican could not simply impose its will without challenging the entire Coptic communion. For centuries, this arrangement protected Ethiopia's unique traditions within a recognized Christian framework. Synthesizing these threads, a powerful truth emerges. Ethiopia was not a passive recipient of Christianity, but a co-creator. Its faith was woven from Jewish scripture, apostolic witness, and a fiercely independent spirit. This foundational identity meant that when Western missionaries later arrived with a different canon and a pope's authority, Ethiopians saw no need for correction. Their faith was not a branch of European Christianity. It was a trunk of its own, with roots stretching back to Solomon and the first Gentile baptized by an apostle. This consciousness was the bedrock of their resilience. But before continuing, please subscribe to my channel. It is a big deal to me, but a matter of a single click to you. The heart of Ethiopia's resistance lay in its powerful ecclesiastical tradition, a spiritual fortress built of scripture, language, and learning. At its core was a Bible unique in all Christendom. While the West settled on 66 books, and Rome on 74, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church preserved a sacred library of over 81 texts. This included Enoch, Jubilees, and Meqabian, books cherished as divine revelation but lost or rejected elsewhere. This broader canon was non-negotiable, a theological declaration of independence that predated and defied the councils of Rome. If the canon was the treasure, the ancient language of Guizi was the vault that protected it. No longer spoken in daily life, Guizi became the liturgical and literary language of the Church, a sacred tongue unchanged by time. This created a formidable barrier. Missionaries could not simply arrive and reinterpret scripture. They first had to master a complex language with its own alphabet. Guizi acted as a cultural firewall, ensuring that Ethiopia's sacred texts remained untouched by foreign translation or doctrinal editing for centuries. The guardians of this treasure were the monks in their mountaintop monasteries. These were not just places of prayer, but citadels of learning. Monks spent their lives meticulously copying manuscripts by hand, illuminating them with art that blended African and Near Eastern styles. In times of danger, they hid these texts in caves and secret chambers. Theological schools attached to the monasteries trained clergy in a rigorous curriculum of Guizi, scripture, and unique Ethiopian commentary, creating a deeply knowledgeable and resilient clerical class. Together, the canon, the language, and the monastic system formed an unbreachable fortress of tradition. This was a spiritual infrastructure designed for endurance. The unique scripture provided a different theology, the language prevented ideological intrusion, and the monasteries ensured the flame was passed to each new generation. When confronted with Western demands for conformity, the Ethiopian Church did not need to argue. It simply had to point to what it had always preserved. Its very existence was its argument. Watch the video till the end. The next part will astonish you. While the church was the soul of resistance, the Ethiopian state was its sword and shield. In an era when European powers colonized nearly all of Africa, imposing their religion along with their rule, Ethiopia stood apart as a sovereign nation. Its political independence was absolute. This meant that when the Vatican or other Western powers sought to influence Ethiopian Christianity, they had no colonial administration to enforce their will. They had to negotiate with powerful emperors who commanded armies and a people fiercely loyal to their own ancient church. This sovereignty was proven on the battlefield. At the Battle of Adwa in 1896, Emperor Menelik II led his forces to a stunning victory over invading Italian troops. This was not just a military triumph, it was a spiritual one. Adwa declared to the world that Ethiopia would not be ruled politically, and therefore, its faith would not be colonized. The victory itself is the result of the Church's teachings, where children study the unique book of Meqabian, which dictate patriotism for their faith. Even during Mussolini's brief occupation in the 1930s, the Church became a center of patriotic resistance, ensuring that the spirit of the nation and its scriptures remained unconquered. The Patriarch himself was sacrificed in front of the people for his call, "Don't surrender to enemy." The enemy would dilute your religion, in a stage where Italians prepared to subdue the people of Ethiopia by the Patriarch. The emperors themselves were the ultimate guardians of the faith, seen as heirs to the Solomonic dynasty. Their legitimacy was tied to their role as defenders of orthodoxy. Emperor Zara Yaqub in the 15th century centralized the Church and expelled foreign influences. Centuries later, when Emperor Sisinios flirted with Catholicism, the people's revolt was so fierce he was forced to abdicate. His son, Fasilides, immediately expelled the Jesuits and restored the Orthodox Church. The lesson was clear: the throne protected the altar, and the altar sanctified the throne. Political autonomy was the shield that allowed the ecclesiastical fortress to stand. Without it, the unique Ethiopian Bible would have likely suffered the fate of other indigenous traditions: suppression, alteration, or being relegated to a footnote. But because Ethiopia remained free, its Bible remained whole. The story of its survival is inseparable from the story of its sovereignty, a nation that defended its land and in doing so, defended its soul. But before continuing, please subscribe to my channel. It is a big deal to me, but a matter of a single click to you. The Vatican's most determined attempt to bring Ethiopia into its fold came in the 16th and 17th centuries through the Jesuits. Seeing Ethiopia as the legendary kingdom of Prester John, a potential ally against Islam, they arrived with scholarship, diplomacy, and papal authority. Missionaries like Pedro Páez learned Guizi and engaged in theological debate, winning the ear of Emperor Sisinios I. For a moment, it seemed Rome might succeed where geography had failed. The Vatican appointed a patriarch for Ethiopia, Afonso Mendes, with a mandate to enforce Roman doctrine. In 1622, Emperor Sisinios made a fateful decision. He converted to Catholicism and declared allegiance to the Pope. The changes were immediate and sweeping. Latin rites replaced ancient Guizi liturgies. Fasting customs were altered. The unique Ethiopian canon was questioned. For a decade, it appeared the Vatican had achieved its goal. But this top-down imposition ignored the will of the people. It was not a conversion of heart, but a political calculation that would ignite a firestorm of resistance. The resistance was swift and universal. Monks from remote monasteries preached rebellion. Peasant armies rose up, declaring they would not abandon the faith of their fathers. The country descended into civil war, not for power, but for the soul of its faith. Sisinios, seeing his kingdom tearing itself apart, realized his error. The Vatican's victory was an illusion built on sand. The experiment in assimilation had failed catastrophically, proving that faith could not be imposed by decree, even from an emperor. The final act was restoration. In 1632, Sisinios abdicated in favor of his son, Fasilides, whose first act was to expel the Jesuits, outlaw Catholicism, and fully restore the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. The Vatican's grand ambition in Ethiopia ended not in communion, but in humiliating expulsion. This event became a cornerstone of Ethiopian identity, a national memory that cemented a deep-seated wariness of foreign religious influence and reinforced the unshakable conviction that their faith was complete, authentic, and needed no correction from the West. But before continuing, please subscribe to my channel. It is a big deal to me, but a matter of a single click to you. Beyond politics and geography, the ultimate guardian of the Ethiopian Bible was an unshakable cultural and religious pride. This pride was rooted in tangible achievements. A unique alphabet, the Guizi script, developed centuries before Christianity and used to preserve their scriptures. This indigenous writing system was a powerful symbol of identity. Unlike most of Africa, where writing was often introduced by colonizers, Ethiopia's literary tradition was self-born, insulating its sacred texts from foreign editorial control from the very beginning. This pride was vindicated in the 20th century by a stunning archaeological discovery. The Dead Sea Scrolls, found in Qumran, contained fragments of the Book of Enoch and Jubilee in Aramaic. For Western scholars who had dismissed the Ethiopian Enoch as a late, apocryphal edition, this was a revolution. The scrolls prove that Enoch and Jubilee were an ancient Jewish text, revered centuries before Christ. Ethiopia, it turned out, had not added to the Bible. It had preserved what the West had lost. This was a profound validation of Ethiopia's ancient tradition. This deep-seated pride manifests in a living faith. The rhythmic drumming of the kebero, the solemn dance of the priests, the vibrant tullets, icons, with their distinct style, every aspect of worship is a celebration of an unbroken tradition. This is not a faith preserved in a museum, but one that breathes, sings, and dances. It is a faith that has absorbed challenges and emerged stronger, its identity forged in resistance. The survival of the Bible is not just about ancient manuscripts. It is about the living community that reads, chants, and lives by them today. In the final analysis, the Ethiopian Bible survived because it was never seen as separate from Ethiopian identity. It was the soul of the nation, and the nation was its bodyguard. Geographic isolation provided the stage, political autonomy provided the shield, ecclesiastical tradition built the fortress, and cultural pride provided the unconquerable will. The story of its survival is a testament to a people who understood that their sacred texts were not just a matter of doctrine, but the very source of their existence as a unique and enduring civilization. The Ethiopian Bible's journey is more than a historical curiosity. It is a profound narrative of resilience. It challenges the very notion of a universal, standardized Christianity, reminding us that the faith has always been a tapestry of diverse traditions. In a world where cultural homogenization is a constant force, Ethiopia stands as a beacon, demonstrating that identity, rooted in deep spiritual heritage, can withstand the tides of history. The survival of its unique canon is a gift to the world, a preserved library of ancient thought that continues to whisper secrets from the dawn of faith, safeguarded by a nation that chose to remember what others forgot. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, share, and like to encourage me produce further similar videos.